Good afternoon and welcome to Moments of Hope with yours truly, Pastor Curtis Grant and the Zion Hope family. God bless you. To those of you that have come to be a part of this teaching today, God bless you. Thank you so much for just being here. I hope all is well with you and your household. Those of you that are going to join with us in the conference call, you can dial 515-606-5380 and then the access code is 636090. And so I want to read a few things in your hearing today. We will probably just kind of read to try to get some kind of grip on where we are in this. There are so many good messages that's found in the confines of chapter 14, and so it might take me, however long God wants to do it. But today we're going to start in Exodus chapter 14, verse 15, and I'm going to read through a whole lot of stuff that I probably won't get to, but I want to just kind of unfold it as we go. It says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward, but lift up thy rod and stretch out thy hand over the sea and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. And I will get my honor upon Pharaoh and upon all his host, and upon the chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. When I have gotten my honor upon Pharaoh and upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. And the angel of the Lord which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud, which from before their faces, and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and it was a cloud, a darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one could not come near the other all night. And Moses stretched out his hands over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a great strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon dry land, dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them, unto their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst, to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariot, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the cloud of the pillow, the pillow of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off the chariot wheels, that they drove them heavily, so that the Egyptians says, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the water may come again upon the Egyptians, and upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength when the morning appeared. And the Egyptians fled against it. And the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariot, covered the horsemen, and all the hosts of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remaineth not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left hand. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord. and his servant Moses. All right, that was a mouthful. God bless you. And so basically, we're not going to get to all of that, but I read it for the sake of context and really understanding where Israel is at this point. And but what I want to go back to is to show you that God had a plan all along. And I want to read for some of you Jeremiah 29 and 11, when God deals with Israel coming out of Babylon, or before they actually go into Babylon, he gives to the prophet Jeremiah this message for Israel. And this is what he told Israel. He says, he tells Israel, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you, said the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. And what I want to do is I want to read out of a different translation so that you'll understand. It says, for I know the plans I have for you. This is the Lord's declaration, planned for you for your welfare and not for your disaster, to give you a future and a hope. And that's basically what the Christian Standard Bible reads. And basically what God is saying to Israel is that, all the stuff that it looks like haphazard living and things are just happening, you have to understand things are not just happening, they're happening according to the plan. And that's what I come to tell you today, is that God has a plan for my life, he has a plan for your life. And what you find out is that we end up frustrating the plan of God. We don't stop the plan of God, we frustrate it. Because we are so busy trying to live our own life, do our own thing, do what we want to do. You know what I'm saying? Living like the Adam family, saying what we want to say, do what we want to do, go where we want to go, be where we want to be. You see what I'm saying? And we frustrate the plan of God, because at the end of the day, the plan of God is going to manifest itself just like God says. Now, whether you agree with God's plan or not will determine whether you are frustrated. But when you agree with it, you probably will submit to it and move, according to the plan of God, so that God can get you in your proper place. And so I said all of that to say that when you go back and look at Israel, God had a plan for Israel just like he has a plan for you. The first thing I want to point out for you is this, is that when you look at Exodus chapter 1, verse 5, it says that all of the souls of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was already in the land. And so when you see this, you find out that, Israel goes into Egypt only about 70 strong. All right. Joseph is already in the land, and they are now stationed in the land of Goshen. All right. And God allows them to stay there 430 years. And when you look at the number of Israelites coming out, which is found in Exodus chapter 12, verse 37, it says about 600,000 on foot were the men, besides the women. There were mixed multitudes that went up with them. It wants to submit there was 600,000 men. We're talking about Israelites, not including the women and the children. So I can't tell you what that number might have been, but it went from 70 to 600,000 plus. All right. And so the point I'm trying to get to you is this, is that when you look at Egypt, you find out that Egypt becomes the womb that God matures Israel in. All right. And what you see now is that when God gets ready to bring them out, it is the equivalent of a woman who's pregnant and the child, drops down into the birthing position. Because this is what's about to happen here in this story, is that God is about to give birth to Israel into a brand new life. By coming through the Red Sea. And so I want you to understand that because at the end of the day, when you look at this, you find out that God puts them down in the place of Migdal between Baal-zephon and Pirahira, and they're stuck between the mountains, and God allows Pharaoh to pursue them, all right? And what you see this is that Pharaoh now comes, and when the Israelites sees Pharaoh, they become afraid, the scripture says. And what Pharaoh actually becomes is the labor pains that the woman has when she gets ready to push the baby into the canal womb so that the baby can come out into a brand new life. And so I want you to see this because I think that God got some things for us to understand, because when you see this, you find out that the Bible says that the angel that was leading them, when he saw Pharaoh and the army, he went from in front of them and he got behind them and became a wedge between Israel and Pharaoh's army. All right? And so the question now becomes is, why didn't God just go ahead and kill Pharaoh right then? And the question and the answer to that question is that Pharaoh still had a purpose to serve in the birthing of Israel. All right? Because, when there is no pursuing of Israel, Israel becomes comfortable. All right? And so God has to always keep the enemy close to Israel to keep them intensified and moving forward. All right? And what you see is that while God got a wedge between Israel and the Pharaoh's army, he tells Moses to stretch forth his rod and divide the sea. And what you see is that the walls go up on both sides like this. All right? And what you see in the middle is the canal that the baby is about to come through. All right? And so God allows the walls to stand, all right? Because before the woman ever gives gives a birth to a baby, first thing has to happen is the water has to break. And so that's what Moses did when he waved the rod over the water broke, all right? It broke and it stood up on both sides. And what it created was a womb for Israel to cross on, all right? And so God did not get rid of Pharaoh, because Pharaoh served a purpose. He was the birthing pain or the birthing pains to push Israel across into their brand new life. It's interesting now that that God looks through the cloud, according to the scriptures, and he pulls off the chariot wheels. All right, because and again, he could have killed them, but he didn't. But he pulls off the chariot wheels to slow down the Egyptians so that they wouldn't catch Israel, but close enough to keep Israel intense. What does that have to do to you? What does this have to do with you at whatsoever? Why is this even relevant? Well, you have to understand, brothers and sisters, that sometimes God keeps the enemy close to us because he knows the mentality that we have. All right? And what you find out is that when you read chapter 14 of Exodus, chapter 14:12, this is the mentality. The mentality is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we might serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. And so sometimes our mindsets are so conditioned, all right, that we can't see ourselves in anything other than what we're in. And God has to keep the enemy close to us to push us into places that our minds are not really conditioned to go in, because our minds have been institutionalized in such a way that we can only be comfortable where we are. And so God keeps the enemy close to us to force us into places that we probably wouldn't have never thought to go, because our minds have already been settled and comfortable. That's why the devil has to stay behind us. That's why God don't get rid of the devil, because the devil serves his purpose. He serves his purpose to keep you moving forward. You see, if you took away Israel, if you take away Pharaoh, it probably would have took Israel months to get across the Red Sea, because they just would have been slowful. They would have just took them time and did all that. But God kept him very close so that he could get the process done in a good time. And how many times have you looked at your life and it seems like the enemy just won't leave you alone? Well, you need to give God praise, because he has a plan for you, and he can't allow you to get comfortable where you are. He has to keep the enemy real close so that he can keep you on your P's and Q's to keep you moving forward, not only in physical motion, but in mental motion as well, because he has to develop you. He has to teach you how to deal with life and situation and change, because as long as you live, there's going to be change. And if you have a problem with change, you're going to have very, very, very many miserable days, because every day you wake up, there's a change. And you got to learn how to make a quick adaptation to a change, because when God talks about moving you into your destiny, all right, every day is a change. He does it subtle so that it doesn't mess you up too bad, but every day is a change. And so when you look at this, God is keeping Pharaoh close to Egypt, Pharaoh close to Israel, so that he can keep them moving forward. And so I want to tell you is that, you know, when you start looking at your own personal life, you got to understand that the devil is never going to go away. He's going to always be a part of your life, and you got to learn how to deal with him, and you can't allow him to frustrate you, because his whole purpose in your life is to keep you motivated to moving forward physically and to move forward mentally, so that God can mature you to deal with life, to deal with people in your life in such a manner, all right, that you become the child of God that God intended for you to be. You see, you don't learn to love until you got hateful people in your presence, all right, that you got to deal with. You see what I'm saying? And you can't allow them to pull out the evil in you. You got to use the love that God has given to you to overcome them. You see what I'm saying? And God keeps pushing you into a place where he can develop you mentally as well as physical. And so we get so frustrated with people, we get so frustrated with our lives, that we lose sight of what God is trying to do. You see, God is trying to tell you today, listen, I got plans for you, man. I got plans for you. It's not it's of peace. It's not of evil. And I got expected end. I got things I want you to have. I got things I want to bless your life with. But you're slowful, you're lazy, and you're scared, you're faithless, and you're walking around here and you're all frustrated with life. And man, I'm waiting on you. And God is saying today, listen, stop being faithless. Go ahead and go with God. If you trust God, go with God, because at the end of the day, God opened the doors that no man can close doors that no man can open. And the truth of it is, you got so many so many open doors in your life that you don't even know which one to choose. But I'm telling you, don't be afraid to walk into one, because God has a plan for your life. And I'm beginning to believe in a more emphatic way that every door that God opens, all right, he has a plan for that open door. And we got to have enough faith that if God opens a door, he already has a plan and equipped us to handle whatever behind door. That particular door, and we got to learn how to move forward. And so at the end of the day, God has a plan. I want you to type that into your computer. God has a plan for me, and I got to stop being slowful. All right, I got to operate in faith. I got to move with God, and sometimes I don't always know what God is doing, and that's where the trust comes in. I got to trust God. Even though I don't understand what he's doing, I got to trust him, because at the end of the day, God has a plan for me of peace and not evil. I ain't trying to hurt you, all right? The only reason that, one of the reasons, all right, that you receive a lot of frustration is that you keep rebelling against the plan, all right? Your mindset, all right, is indicative or opposite of what God is trying to do in your life. You trying to go back to Egypt. God says, I got something else. I got a promised land for you. You trying to go back and serve, you know, your old self. And God said, no. I got bigger things for you. All right. And that's where the pain comes from, because anytime God is trying to move you forward and you're trying to go backwards, it becomes a struggle. And you always going to lose when you struggle with God. All right? And you don't believe me? Ask Jacob. Because when you wrestle with God, you're going to lose. All right? And y'all, listen to this. I know that he wrestled with the angel all night long and prevailed. But you have to understand that God allowed him to prevail, all right, because he was trying to accomplish something with Jacob, all right? And what I'm trying to tell you is that God's plan is going to always take precedent, all right? It's going to always come like God wanted to be, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. Whatever your plans you're going to lose, because God's plan is what's going to take place regardless if you like it or not. And so it's better to just submit to what God is trying to do than to fight against him. And sometimes we don't even know. I mean, even with this pandemic, you know, I looked at what God had done, and I was grateful to what God had done when it came to Zion and us getting the church up. And I'm all excited. I'm ready to move forward. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and I'm like, oh my God, where are we? You see? And this is the time when you have to trust God, because I don't have a clue where God is going. But you know what I am concluded? I am comfortable in wherever God takes me, I'm going to follow. Because he knows better than me. And if God has a plan for Israel, he got a plan for me, got a plan for Zion Hope. And whatever that plan is, I want to be a part of it. I heard Paul Morton, he wrote that song, said, Lord, whatever you're going to do in this season, and this is another season. I don't know if you realize that. God has used this pandemic to give us a break, to shift the seasons on us. All right? And Paul Morton said, whatever you do in this season, don't do it without me. And so that's my cry today, Lord. Whatever you choose to do it, in this season, don't do it without me. I want to be a part of whatever God's doing. And if you're going to do that, you got to trust God, even though you don't know what God is doing and how he's going to manifest it. I just know that when it all works out, it's going to work out for my good, because that's what the Bible said. God says, Paul says, all things. I'm glad. I'm trying not to get happy on my own message. Works for the good of them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. I know I'm called according to God's purpose, and I love God with all my heart. And so at the end of the day, I don't understand what God is doing. I don't understand what he's doing in your life. I don't understand sometimes what he's doing. I just know that whatever he's doing is going to work for my peace and not my evil. It's going to come to an expected end where the plans I have, okay, is going to be so much less than what God has in store for me. If I had known what God was going to do with my life before I became the pastor of Zion Hope, I would have done it a long time ago. But the truth of it is, I didn't know. I had to just trust God. And God led me from one stage to another because he understands my mentality. It can't handle so much at once. All right? And so might I submit to you that your mindset, all right, is important in this too. You got to be open-minded, okay? Because Israel kept saying, wasn't this my word before we even left the land? Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians. Well, that ain't God's plan for you to be enslaved by somebody else. God's plan for your life is so that you can have your own, so that you can use your mind to think for yourself, so that you can have a relationship with him that is unhindered by other people's agenda. Hello, somebody. And so at the end of the day, I'm hoping you understand what I'm saying. God's got a plan for you. I know it's rough. I know you're by yourself. I know you're crying at night. I know you're tired of the situation. But boo-boo, if you can just hold on, God's got a plan for you. Put it in your system again in capital letters. God's got a plan for me. And sometimes you just got to wait on the Lord and be of good courage. Because in the end, when God's plan speak, it will encourage your heart. All right? And so that's what we got to deal with today, because Israel looks like, things are just happening haphazardly, but all along, God had a plan. All right? He had a plan, and he worked that plan. It took him a long time to work that plan, but guess what? The plan length was predicated on the growth of Israel. You follow what I'm saying? And might I submit to you as I get ready to close, that God's plan for your life is going to be predicated on how fast you grow. All right? I think the scripture says that I desire you to prosper even as your soul prosper. All right? In other words, God would not be a gracious or a good father to put me in something that my mind has not matured enough for me to handle. You understand what I'm saying? And so if you really want the progress of God and the plan of God to hurry up or to speed up or to go in its natural form, you got to get your mind together, all right, so that God can mature you and help you learn the lessons you need to learn before he brings you into the destiny, all right? Because if he brings you into the destiny before he gets your mind fixed, all right, you're going to destroy the destiny that he brings you into. So you got to do some time in with God, study the word. Let God teach you out of your environment. Let him teach you the principles in the Bible, all right? Then he turns and take the principle and make it practical, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Makes it practical in your life, all right? And so the principles that you learn in the book, all right, that's studying. And then you got to take what you learn and then you got to apply them to your life so that the maturity of God shows up in your life in such a way that God sees that you're ready for the next step in your destiny. God bless you. God keep you. I got to quit because I'm sweating in here like a Baptist preacher. But the bottom line is, I'm hoping you hear what I'm trying to say, because at the end of the day, saints, we just got to trust the God we serve. If you believe that God is God, and I do, God got a plan, all right? And his plan, all right, for us, all right, is so much better than our plans for ourselves, because we don't know what we're gifted of. We don't know what character God has placed with us. We don't even know our limitations yet. God knows all of that, all right? And we keep selling ourselves short because we keep seeing ourselves like Israel saw themselves when they got ready to take the promised land. We look like grasshoppers. Really, all right? That's what you look like in your own eyes. But you don't even realize that God has made you a giant, all right? And because you keep selling yourself short, God has to keep forcing you into areas where you don't even know you've already got the power to overcome, all right? Because you don't know who you are just yet. And you don't know that until you get into God's feet and let God reveal to you what he's made you, what he has created within you, what he has blessed you to do, what he has blessed you to accomplish, all right? And you have to spend some time with God. You know, church ain't gonna get that for you, all right? What's gonna get that for you is spending time with God, reading the word, trying to figure out what it is that God has ordained you to do. Start doing what God has ordained you to do, and what you will see is what God planned for you is so much greater than your plans for yourself. God bless you. God keep you. As I pray, I got to stop. I'm hoping something has been said to help you. I hope and pray that you take heed to what I'm trying to tell you. Because, you know, I talked to my brother the other day. I know I got to get off. I talked to my brother the other day, and I just thought to him, and I said to him, I said, Theo, I said, man, did you ever think that we would be where we are today? I mean, two, you know, black nappy-head boys from Memphis, Tennessee, from Clementine, the ghetto. I mean, straight up ghetto, all right? I mean, we didn't have nothing, but what we had was clean because my mama rolled like that. You understand what I'm saying? But I never thought that I'd be where I am today, all right? You know, we never thought it. All right, I look at him and how the Lord has blessed him with a wonderful family. I mean, just blessings. I mean, my sister who's in Philadelphia, blessed. My brother who's in California, just blessed. Man, I mean, all four of these kids just blessed individuals. You know what I'm saying? And we never thought in a million years that we would be where we are. And saints, all I'm saying today, and I got to quit, all I'm saying today is, you know, if you let God lead you, all right, the plans you had for yourself will not even be compared to the plans that God has in store for you. And I guarantee you, you want God's plan instead of the one you got planned for yourself. Because God knows who you are, knows what you can accomplish, and he does what he knows you can do. All right? I don't know if that was correct English, but I said it. All right? But the bottom line is, let him do it. Okay? And just say to him, yes to your will and yes to your way. Gotta quit. For those of you that are sitting, listening to this presentation, and you ain't gave your life to the Lord, I'm telling you, today God wants you to surrender. All right? And all you have to do is inbox us your name and your phone number, and God will get with you to try to direct you in the right place so we can get you on the right path, because God got some plans for your life. All right? And so I don't want you to frustrate the plan of God. You ain't going to never stop the plan of God. All you can do is frustrate it. And you the one going to be frustrated, because God don't get frustrated because he already knew you was going to rebel in the first place. All right? So you the one that's end up frustrated. All right? Not God. All right? And so at the end of the day, if you want to, lessen those frustrations, then, you know, you have to surrender to the will of God. And so don't forget, at 1 o'clock we are praying, praying for our country, our president, all of the leaders, your house, my house, the church house, anybody else's house.